All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about the Jets going back to Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is going to start on Sunday against the Houston Texans. Um, Honestly, I was kind of in agreement with, especially here with the, sports media here. It's like, at this point, the Jets are kind of just out of it. They thought, again, similar to last year, you make a quarterback change, you try to, reignite the offense, get something going, push themselves into the playoffs. But yeah, the Tim Boyle experiment clearly did not work. Not that I was a believer of it. It's like, I was like, yeah, maybe you see what you got, but it's probably going to be more of the same. And yeah, it was pretty much more of the same. Offense can't score touchdowns. They got the defense has scored more points, as opposed to the offense. They got the safety against the Falcons. They got the pick six off of Tua, a couple weeks ago in the Black Friday game. The Jets offense is a mess, and again, it's unfortunate because I really wanted to see what Aaron Rodgers was going to do for this team, but it just wasn't meant to be for this year. So hopefully next year he comes back healthy, he bounces back, and then we actually get to see what he does, as opposed to him, running out with the American flag and only playing 4 snaps. And again, I thought it was, really cool when he did that, and then it just, seeing the stadium all, pumped up, and it was unbelievable, really. And then just 4 plays in, it just, again, I was beside myself, seeing that. So hopefully, take two next year is gonna be better. But of course, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the media with Zach Wilson, and there was reports out there that he was reluctant to go back to being the starter. And there's different reports and things like that. The Jets were saying, there's reports that the Jets had Aaron Rodgers go to talk to Zach Wilson, about, coming back as the starter, and he was, hesitant. But now Zach Wilson, I did hear, listening to the radio in the car yesterday, he did say that, he's going to come back. He's ready to play. He's ready to go. So I don't know. It's a whole mess there. And it's just going to be, again, it's another situation where it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because the Jets are, they were 4-3 at one point. Now, they're 4-8. And they're not going to make the playoffs. And I did do a segment earlier in the year where I said, can the Jets make the playoffs? And, you thought so, because you come off a win against the Eagles, and a game you had no business winning, because and people could argue, hey, Hurts doesn't throw that pick, then the Jets probably lose that game, and they also should have lost against the Giants too. So they're like one legitimate win, if you really think about it, probably came against the Broncos. If you want to put the Bills in there too, you can, but this offense has been awful. The Giant game, 13 points. Chargers game, 6. 12 against the Raiders. 6 against the Bills. 13 against the Dolphins. Well, one of them was a pick 6. 6 points against the Falcons. The 2 was the safety. It's just, it's terrible. It's really bad. And listen, Nathaniel Hackett, he's a quarterback's coach. Him as a play caller without Aaron Rodgers, it's just, you need Aaron Rodgers to run his offense, because it just shows you that he's just not a good play caller. He's not. You go back to Denver last year, they were a bad team that he didn't even make it through the full year. And the Jets, they had Mike LaFleur as their play caller, and he wasn't good either. So I don't know. Robert Saleh, he is a good defensive coach, but he's not a good head coach, because he has no he has no control. Well, I shouldn't say he has no control, but he has no. Um, I'm trying to think. Like, I guess he has no like grip on. Yeah, I was gonna say grip. He has like no grip on the offense. He doesn't really, or influence. He doesn't really, know offense. Defense is his strength, and it's similar to Rex Ryan too. Um, so I don't know what the Jets are gonna do at the end of the year, because you got Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, who since they've come here, they have a losing record. They have a losing record, and they could end the season losing the rest of their games. And it's like, you're really gonna run it back like this? I mean, I guess you run it back with Rodgers, but it's not good. It's not good the way the season has played out, because and you got to fault them too, because they didn't bring in a backup quarterback that could play. Like, you had Carson Wentz out there, you had Matt Ryan out there. Like, those options would be, now again, they're not the same players that they used to be, but I mean, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan's like doing broadcasting now, and he likes that. He even said, like, I'm fine with what I'm doing. Carson Wentz was out there. Carson Wentz would have been so much better than Trevor Siemian and Tim Boyle. Now, when you talk about Carson Wentz and him as a person, and how he wasn't really, it seems like he really wasn't liked in locker rooms, that's a different story. But you're telling me Carson Wentz couldn't come to this Jets team and they could have won a few more games than they have right now? They absolutely could have, especially with the defense that they have. Because at least Carson Wentz can move the ball. The offense would have been better with him at quarterback. But again, if there was other things besides, his quarterback play that were making you hesitant to signing him, that's a different story. But for me, I think that would have made more sense, as opposed to, let's bring in Trevor Siemian and Tim Boyle, because those are not. I mean, look around the league. All these backup quarterbacks. Gardner Minshew coming in. I mean, P.J. Walker did win a couple of games, with the Browns. Or, at least they won the game against San Francisco when he started. Who else? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, Josh Dobbs, as a backup quarterback, he was winning games. Tommy DeVito winning games. There's a handful of backup quarterbacks out there that are winning games, and you just go and you're like, all right, we're gonna settle for Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian, and it didn't work. Aiden O'Connell, he won some games, even though they were against the Jets and the Giants. It's just the Jets. They get Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian, and I mean, they're fumbling the ball all over the place on Sunday. Now, the weather conditions were bad, but still, I mean, it was just, it's terrible what's happened with the Jets this year. And Zach Wilson, again, is getting another chance to prove himself. Now, is he gonna prove himself? Is he gonna play well? No, I don't think so. I mean, there's really nothing that, indicates, anything else. But you know what? You're only going to get so many chances. Like this, like if you could go out there and you play well, these last 4 games that we got left in the season, that'll help. But you go out there and you continue to play how you've been playing, you're not really going to get another shot. But then you also got the fact that it's not all his fault. The offensive line is bad. The play calling is bad. You don't have a lot of weapons outside of Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. Allen Lazard has been a terrible signing. You're tight. Like, Tyler Conklin's okay, but, he's not a game-changing tight end. They don't really have a lot of weapons. Dalvin Cook has been a disaster, too. He fumbled on Sunday. So, it's not all of Zach Wilson's fault. I agree with that. But he's not very good. He's not very good, because you look at, then you could talk about, look at what C.J. Stroud is doing this year. Nobody really expected the Texans to do anything. Did anybody know who Nico Collins was? I mean, I knew who he was, but Nico Collins is becoming a really good wide receiver. Tank Dell before he got hurt, their rookie, the other rookie wide receiver. Well, Nico Collins isn't a rookie, but Tank Dell, their rookie wide receiver before he got hurt, he was playing well. You didn't hear these guys. They got Damian Pierce and Devin Singletary as their two running backs. Like C.J. Stroud is doing a lot. He is looking right now as a franchise quarterback. He looks like he's the real deal. Zach Wilson, there's been very few moments. I mean, you go back to the Titans game, his rookie year. That's the one. Excuse me. That's the one I always go back to because that was, he made some great throws in that game. Where's that Zach Wilson? He's had moments, but this year it's just been a disaster. I mean, they lost to the Patriots. They don't. This offense does not put up points, and they built up this defense. This defense is very good, very talented. Great players on all three levels, but you look at the offensive side of the ball, and they're limited on what they can do. Now, again, injuries have played a role in that, but it's not good. It's not good. So, he's back in again. Let's see what happens. I mean, it's going to be more of the same, unfortunately. I mean, unless the Jets say, you know what, we're out of it. I mean, not mathematically, but realistically, we're out of it. Just, you know what, Zach, go out there and just, at this point, it doesn't matter. Just go out there and just let it rip. And whatever happens, happens. But because this season's a lost season. And it's on to next year, and who knows where Zach Wilson will end up if he ends up anywhere. I mean, we could maybe see him playing in the XFL USFL merger, which I talked about this yesterday. I had no idea that was happening. So I'm kind of curious to see how that goes with them combining. But you might see Zach Wilson playing there at some point because I don't know. I don't know who's going to take him on. Maybe there's a team that brings him in as a backup, but yeah, he's still very young too. So, maybe a team that actually can develop a quarterback properly could come in and, fix him, which I don't know. At this point, I don't think that's very likely, but you never know. So, but let me know what you guys think about this. Is this the right decision for the Jets to go back to Zach Wilson? Does it really matter? I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I think now with the Jets pretty much being out of it, it's you'd rather just play him instead of Tim Boyle or Trevor Siemian. So, but all right. So with that, we're gonna take our final break of the show, and then when we come back. Speaking of quarterbacks, we're going to talk about the great quarterback matchup we have when it comes to tonight's Thursday night game matchup between the New England Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.